Evening.
She doesn't like doing that. She's not a gambler.
Can I have your attention, please? The May 12th, 2015 School Committee meeting of North Kingstown is now in order. May you all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and can I ask you to please remain standing for a moment of silence afterwards. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for remaining standing, everyone. I want to announce two unfortunate happenings that are related to the North Kingstown School Department. The first is a teaching assistant at the Melrose School in Jamestown, a much beloved teaching assistant. That's the elementary school in Jamestown, and that's a school that feeds into North Kingstown. Leah McGowan was a TA at that school, and she died this past weekend, and it was an absolutely devastating loss to that school. In fact, North Kingstown sent a school psychologist and social worker over to help with the grieving process for them in the past 2 days. So our hearts go out to them. Also, you may have seen the news just today of a tragic car accident. It involved two North Kingstown kids. They're not technically students yet. Adonis Clark, age 3, passed away in the accident. He was scheduled to start at Fishing Cove tomorrow morning. And his oldest sister is hospitalized, and our hearts go out to their family and to these 4 kids. Thank you.
Mrs. Healy, can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Avanzato?
Here.
Mr. Blasbog?
Here.
Mrs. Clarkin?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mrs. McGovern?
Here.
Mrs. Held?
Here.
Ms. Holbrook? Thank you.
Mrs. Healy, can you please call the calendar?
On Monday, May 25th, it is Memorial Day. Schools and offices will be closed. Tuesday, May 26th, is a school committee business meeting at 7 p.m. at the North Kingstown High School.
Thank you. So one of the great parts of this job is that we get to hand out certificates of recognition, and tonight we'd like to recognize the Wickford Middle School Science Olympiad winners. The team finished second on Saturday, April 18th, and they were coached and led by Nancy LaPosta Frazier from Wickford Middle, and we'd also like to extend a thank you to Michael Frazier for all of his help and encouragement. So what I'd like to ask is if all of the team members could come over here. We're going to do it a little differently this time. We're going to ask you to come up the stairs and walk across the stage, receive your certificate, and shake the hand of all the school committee members. So you can all come on up, please.
First step is enthusiasm. Be careful. Okay, so we're changing gears a little bit here, and couldn't be more proud of our team from Wickford and their accomplishment. Tonight we're going to be talking about our robotics and engineering program at the high school, and I would expect a lot of these fine young students to be a part of that program, possibly as they move to the high school. And their accomplishments in science make us all very, very proud. So I'm going to call you by the names that I have on certificates here. So please come on forward, get your certificate, and shake the hands of the proud members of our school committee. Sarah Bourgoin. Is Sarah here this evening? No. Emma Chin? Congratulations, Emma. Henry Compton? Not here this evening. Owen Embry? Annie Etchels? Lexi Foreman? Megan Fry? Mateo Garcia? Colin LaRue? Jake Labooty? Stephen Sullivan? There we go. Congratulations. Meredith Tebow?
All right, there it is.
Alex Tucker? Nice job. So clearly, we have a few others. Rowan Westall could not be here this evening. Sophie Wilhelm and, Nancy LaPasta Frazier. Coach, come on up. Mrs. LaPasta Frazier. And Mr. Frazier, please come on up. Would you like to say a few words about the team and the experience? We would absolutely love it if you did that.
This was the 19th year that Whitford participated in the Science Olympiad, and it's the 11th time that we finished in the top 3 in the state. I am so proud of these kids. Every one of them did their jobs this year because we competed in something like 22 events, and they score all 22 events and add up all the points. And so every one of them has to do well in their chosen events. I'm so proud of them. They did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you.
So I'd like to thank all of the people for coming out this evening. I know that full-day kindergarten has been a hot topic this budget season, and given that, and given that the number of people who are here that probably have young children at home or are just waiting to find out what the decision is, I'd like to move the approval of FY16 funding for full-day kindergarten to the next item on the agenda.
Second. I'm so moved.
Second. Any discussion? What I'd like to do is, since we usually start from me and move forward, I'd like to do the reverse. So, Mr. McGovern, would you like to start?
Voting on the amendment of the motion?
Any discussion first, and then we'll...
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I'm sure people have other things to say. I just want to point out, I've had the opportunity to, for the last 4 months, be on the Rhode Island Department of Education Strategic Planning Committee that's dealing with everything from revamping the way we fund education to personalized learning to streamlining assessments to hopefully a broad transformation of how the state approaches education. And one of the consistent themes from all the experts and others who have come in is the high return on investment that targeted spending on early education provides, and full-day kindergarten is probably the highest returning investment in that category. So I'm glad that North Kingstown is finally able to join the rest of the state in offering it to our families.
Mrs. Avanzato?
Yes, thank you. Well, a lot of good and a little bad came out of this whole controversy. I think hopefully the good is going to be full-day K. The kids need it. The towns wanted it for some time, and it's like past time. There's only 6, am I right, 6 or 7? 7 communities that don't have it yet. But a lot of good in that we had a lot of civic involvement by a new group of people, a new group of parents who were interested, intelligent people that got involved and made their voices heard and advocated for the schools. And we need them to stay involved and keep doing what they did because I think it made a difference. The other thing is, no secret that I was unhappy that the school department didn't get full funding and that we were the only department to get cut out of all the town departments, the only department. I felt that was unfair, to say the least, since we've proven over the last 5 years a pattern of cutting, trimming, being careful with the money, trying to be accountable, trying to be transparent. We've succeeded at that. But again, I think it was clear, at least it was clear to at least the town manager, maybe others, that there was money there. There was I don't really believe $1.4 million was found the night before the council votes. I just don't accept that. So moving forward, I would like not to repeat this again next year and the year after that and the year after that, because it's divisive and it's not good for the community. This was all unnecessary, frankly. I mean, all of your hard work, I kind of appreciate it because now we have you guys who are going to keep you advocating for us, because we need the parents to advocate for the schools. But that being said, I think everybody got put through a lot of aggravation that they didn't need to be because the money was there. But let's look at it as a positive to the kids, because that's what it really is. So I'm very excited that we're doing it finally. Thank you.
Mr. Blasball?
Thank you. I want to echo a little bit of what Mrs. Avanzato said, which is it was great to see a lot of community involvement. It was an exercise of democracy in action, and sometimes democracy isn't pretty, but it certainly does beat the alternatives. So happy to see you folks come out, and while without you, we would have done what we could to advocate, at least I personally, for full-day kindergarten. With you folks doing the organization and really drumming up the support, it really helped bring some of the things that we've been trying to say home to the greater community and also to the members of the town council. So I want to thank you for all of your involvement. And we do have some difficult decisions to make tonight. I mean, we are not going to be able to implement this program without making some additional cuts to our proposed budget. But I think that we are now within the realm that we can do so without having a serious impact on our program. So thank you again.
So I guess I echo the same sentiments of Mrs. Avanzato and Mr. Blasbog. Clearly, there was an outpouring of support for full-day kindergarten in North Kingstown. And I also want to thank all of you who came out to all of the various meetings in support of this great step that we need to take. It's clearly, I feel, in the best interest of the students and the taxpayers and the families within North Kingstown. And it can only be a positive thing for our school district and community, and we need to make this happen tonight. We need to continually improve all the good work we're doing in the North Kingstown School Department. So I have a motion to approve full-day kindergarten, and I have a second. Oh, wait, Dr. Auger wants to say a word. I apologize.
I've been dying to talk about this all night so far, so. Thank you very much. Again, echoing a lot of the sentiments, I couldn't have been more proud of the school department on the night of the public hearing, not only for people taking the time to be more involved and to come out and advocate for something that you feel passionately about. That is a great thing. But in doing so, you also made a lot of points about, the work that we do on our budget, and how transparent you find that, how welcoming you have found people in our central office, in particular Mrs. King, when asking her questions about the budget. And year after year, I feel like we do our due diligence to make sure that people understand exactly what we're dealing with and exactly what's at stake in a budget conversation. And many in our community, they're busy with a lot of other things in their lives, and they're not necessarily interested in this, but it certainly does translate to the kinds of programs and people and services that we provide as a school department. And so it's very important stuff. So I couldn't be more proud to have you advocate on its behalf, and I'm really happy to be at this point tonight where we're taking this vote. So thank you.
Mrs. King?
I just want to thank everybody, too. It's given me a great opportunity to meet a lot of you out there, and I've spoken to a few of you. I see some of you sitting out in the front there. Thank you for your support and your time and your interest in the North Kingstown School Department. I've been here for 3 years last week, and this is just phenomenal. I've never seen anybody come out like this in the 3 years that I've been here. So thank you very much. It's been great meeting all of you, and I hope to see you really soon.
Any more discussion? So we have a motion to move the approval of full-day kindergarten. We had a second. We had our discussion. So I'd now like to look for a motion to approve FY16.
We've got to vote on moving.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. All those in favor of moving the full-day kindergarten up on the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
So now I'm looking for a motion to approve the funding for full-day kindergarten.
So moved?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So I guess now we're going to move along with the robotics and engineering presentation.
Oh, so we're going to do the cuts at the end.
At the end, we're going to do those at the end.
Oh, I thought we were going to do them now. Okay.
The end. You know what? It might be more discussion.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be more discussion for sure. Sounds good.
Okay, you know, these meetings seem to go in all these different directions, don't they? From the highs to the lows. One item that we truly should feel fortunate about in North Kingstown, on the other end of the spectrum from kindergarten, is at the high school. You know, for years and years, long before I became an administrator in the district, I know that many in our community have been speaking about, you know, how come North Kingstown, with, you know, one of the largest industrial parks in New England in its backyard, is not a high school that has career and technical programming in it, that students would have to go to, say, Charahoe or Rogers or Coventry to get that kind of an education. And, you know, so there's been a lot of back and forth over the years, but we have finally, this is another nut that has long been awaited and is finally taken care of tonight. I'm very pleased to announce that the Department of Education has approved North Kingstown High School to have a certified career and technical programming in robotics and engineering. And what that means is that our students can receive industry certifications and have, you know, post-secondary experience in this program, have a group of courses that they would take to get this, have those courses recognized by businesses and colleges, and really have a leg up on students from other schools who are basically taking, you know, the basic maths and sciences, that they really have an aim. This is something that is offered to us from the Department of Education because they see robotics and engineering as a high-growth area in Rhode Island right now, and we are part of the response to that. So I couldn't be more pleased. And Dr. Mansiri and Barbara Jackson, who helps us with the business partnerships that we have with this program, are going to give us a presentation on the details of that program.
Well, that was it. So thank you for coming. Good evening, everybody. I just put together a few slides on what the program's about, and I thought I'd go through a few. So a short history of what we did to get this program. A couple of years ago, Rhode put out a call to have a categorical grant, and all we needed to do is we just needed to sign off that we would commit and do a little bit of money matching here, and also to show that we had 3 different classes that we could do. And fortunately, we already had those classes within our school, so we didn't have to do a lot of work. We just signed off, and I had to go to quite a few meetings. So we did that, and then the following year, there wasn't as much that you could get as far as the grant money, but we still could apply for the grant money and receive that as well. And again, so the North Kingstown School Department committed $10,000 the first year and $5,000 the second. And the purchases we made, this is just a few that we made for this, was the 28 computers in the lab. The software to go with it, you need certain software for the classes that we're teaching. 3D printers that helped out not only these classes, but some CAD classes. An Aquos board, robotics kits for the new class. The pit for testing the robots. Desks, chairs, all new equipment in there. Benches for building the robots, motors, equipment, other key pieces. Just everything. The kids just went to town. It was great. And a drill press. Sorry, thank you. So, as Dr. O'Jay said, we received formal, I'm sorry, this feedback is driving me insane.
Us too.
All right. No, can you hear me without it? I can certainly.
You need it for the
Oh, okay. Sorry. So anyway, we were approved. This past month, we got the formal letter, or in April, we got the formal letter saying that we were approved. You need to have the 3-course pathway. You need to have the subject area with a high percentage of jobs, higher education connections, and business partnerships, which we were committed to doing all of those. This is a little small, but our robotics teacher was very eager to make sure we got a lot of information in on what Project Lead the Way is, so I left it in there. Basically, Project Lead the Way is the curriculum that we're going to be using. So it's already an approved, a national program. It's in 6,500 schools across the country. It's in all 50 states. The great thing about the curriculum is it's already, again, with our national science standards. It's also Common Core for the ELA and math. And really what it does is it allows the students to do this hands-on for all the curriculum that they're working with. It partners with Rochester Institute of Technology, and it also partners with Worcester Polytechnical Institute. All right. And what that does, it's kind of like our AP exams here at the high school. So if you go ahead and you take those and you do really well, and we have the curriculum going on, then those particular colleges, what they do is they look at that particular curriculum, and it gives the students a leg up. So just like certain colleges will give you credit, if you take AP and you score, let's say, a 5 on the test or a 4 on the test, they will give you credit for that, maybe for their electives. Same thing happens when the students are in here. They'll give them, maybe they'll give them special privileges, they'll move to the front of the line as long as they go through the entire curriculum. I think that's pretty good. All right, let's keep going. So our 3-course pathway here at the high school. In 9th grade, it's Introduction to Engineering Design. In 10th grade, they move to Principles of Engineering. And in 11th grade is Digital Electronics or Civil Engineering and Architecture. And I just didn't mention it, but we have the opportunity here to actually add, these are the classes that we're doing that we currently have, but they have classes there that you can do that are like resource or on the side. I'm just going to go back for 1 second. Electrical, architectural, those are some specialty classes, and there's many there. So if we have the room to grow, if we do grow, that we can put more classes in. But this is the 3-course pathway that we used for Rhode Island Department of Ed. Now, on top of that, I think really exciting was at the same time, CCRI was also doing a grant with and reaching out to high schools, local high schools. So they asked us if we had a teacher, and we did. And he's here. Can you stand up, Mr. Simmons? Oh, he's waving. There we go. He committed this past fall and into the spring to go to CCRI every week and to work with them, even though he already could have probably taught the course himself, but to gain the certification that he needs to then provide this senior year course. It's called 1504. It's College Engineering and Technology. So Mr. Simmons did that, and now he is an adjunct faculty for CCRI. And what happens is CCRI provides the text and the curriculum, and we provide the engineering kits, the students, the classroom, and all the information, you know, what I told you that we bought. We provide the space. We already have 40 students. We have 2 classes of that signed up, which previously we did not have this class. So they get the college credits, and this is really perfect timing because of all the new dual enrollment that Rhode Island Department of Ed is working with with our colleges and with the high schools. So that's another exciting thing. That is part of this particular program. And Barbara, would you like to talk about this? Barbara Jackson.
Thank you, Denise. So I know that you know that we have these business partnerships going on as part of this program. And in the I guess it was October of last year, we had the official opening of the robotics department and wing. And we invited about 10 companies, and we ended up with almost 20 guests that were at that, in addition to civic leaders that were there. We thought that we would spend about an hour. We would do a tour for a half an hour, and we would chat for about a half an hour. We had our first board meeting with them, and it turned out that we spent close to 2.5 hours together, and we actually had to ask them to leave. They were so excited about what we were doing. They were so excited. The kids were wonderful. So the kids explained what their robots were going to do for this fall's challenge and how they were going to attack the challenge. They gave a demonstration. They showed how they knew how to use some SolidWorks and some Mastercam products. And then we sat down and really talked about the three-course pathway that we were using and what the industries were looking for from graduates. And when we started talking about some of the things that we were teaching, like precision measurement in particular, the two gentlemen that were here from Hexagon just about jumped out of their chairs. I mean, what North Kingstown is doing, as I go through other schools and other businesses that are not part of our coalition, is really quite remarkable. Our students are so well prepared for the specific things that people at NK businesses are looking for. So Denise and the team here have really put together a curricula that not only prepares students for college, prepares them for real work, right, directly out of high school, but also services the businesses that are part of our community. So we have quite a wonderful business partnership going on. We had prepared some visits and some interactive experiences that kind of got blown up this spring because of a couple of exams and mostly the lack of ability to go to school when it was snowing, so everything kind of got pushed back a little bit. But we'll get those rescheduled for next year. The businesses are very excited to meet the students. We have the ability to have them come here for some dangerous businesses that don't really want the students to come on their premises, but they'll come here and bring videos and personnel and stuff to play with. Other businesses will let us go there, and we also have the ability, because one of our partners is the Rhode Island Manufacturers Association, to reach out for a specific student that may need or may be interested in something very special that's outside of the NK boundary, to go out to those businesses and have the student make a connection that way. So we have quite a commitment from them.
All right, this is kind of small, but Mr. Gormley from the Careers Department was kind enough to put a schedule together for the lab that we're doing, and this year we had probably 2 different class periods where we were not using the lab because we were just going with what we had, and now because the program is exploded for next year, we have 2 of the entry level where the feeder schools will come in from Jamestown, DMS, and Wickford Middle School, because all of them have robotics programs there. So our entry-level class has 2 full classes. Then also, like I said, the senior level class that they're going to be getting credit also has 2 classes. And then we also have a Robotics 1 and a Robotics 2. The Robotics 2 class are the students that go into the competitions. And then we have CAD that this year Mr. Howie Haig was teaching. So it's CAD 1 and CAD 2. And you can't see it at the very bottom, but it does say we actually had to move 1 CAD class out into 218 because we are overloaded in this particular class. And this is prior to going out to any other community to get students in. So we're going to have some high demand for this particular program. And speaking of recruitment plans, what we're hoping to do is to get to them. This year is almost over, but anybody that's interested from the area, if they're calling, or, talking to our guidance counselors, I did talk to Barbara Morse. We have a few spots in there, so we could take somebody now that we're approved even for this year. But working on next year, we're going to do visits to the middle schools, letters to the Rhode Island schools guidance counselors. Within our own transportation zone, we can go to those particular schools and speak face-to-face with the students. If they're not in our transportation zone, we can certainly still reach out to those particular schools, get the labels and send them to the 9th graders and to their 8th graders. Then in the fall, we're planning on visits and student tours here and an open house besides the normal open house that we do, kind of like a New England Tech when they have the open house to see the career in tech. So if you're thinking that way. We feel like, and that's just without, that's just planning right now. I think when we get to the fall, we'll even start thinking of more areas to go in. So that's really, we're so excited. The program is already full. We were hoping that we were going to get this, and we went with that positive intent, and it's coming through, and I can't thank everybody enough that was involved in it. I think that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mansieri and Mrs. Jackson. And I want to say that Mr. Blasberg and I actually attended that October open house, and I was so impressed with the whole program and the number of business community members who came out and sat around that table and offered their advice as to different pathways that the students could take and different courses that would enable them to get out into that workforce, especially in the Quonset area. So, I think it's a fabulous program, and I'm just glad to see it continue to grow.
Thank you.
Are there any questions, Mrs. Avanzato?
No questions, but I just wanted to note that it's almost like a program more like a Northeastern, where it's almost like midway between an actual internship. I mean, it's like a feeder program into jobs, which is great. Rather than just a VOTEC school, you're just hooking them up early, which is just going to be great for the students that want to go do those, take those jobs. So.
Thank you.
Really excited about this. This is something Dick Welsh was talking about for years. He wanted to get moving on vocational stuff, but I think we're going in a good direction with that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Blasberg?
Yeah, I just also want to echo, thank you for the presentation. And, when you read the newspaper, you hear, what a big gap that not just in Rhode Island, but nationally, but particularly in Rhode Island, we have between the skills that employers are looking for from high school and ultimately college graduates as well, compared to what they're actually getting. And I think that this is really the beginnings of a real target to address that. And I want to thank, not that they're here, but to the extent that they hear me, the business partners that you have, because as Mrs. Clarkin mentioned, that the level of the executives and the companies that they represented at the presentation that we attended was amazing to see. The executives from these multinational engineering companies coming out and meeting with our students and talking with us and partnering with it. It's a great opportunity for our kids.
Mr. McGovern?
I just had a comment. I love this program. I am a civil engineer, so it's very close to my heart. But the AutoCAD program, a course that you offer, is excellent. And I would like to encourage you to allow the students to go even further with it. AutoCAD has various levels of certification, and when they finish your class, they are just about ready to take the exam for the first certification that they can do. Well, 3 years ago, you could do it at New England Tech, so I'm not sure if that's changed. There is an online practice exam, so they can kind of judge whether or not they think they're ready to take the exam, but it's an excellent item to be able to put on their resume.
Right.
And AutoCAD technicians are in demand.
Right.
So because of this program, there are a number of, as you point out, national certifications that the students will be almost prepared for, if not completely prepared for. So we're going through and we're making a list, not just of all the ones that they could get, not like a Girl Scout badge thing, but all the ones that are really important to the industry. So that's one of the things that we have on tap for until the end of the year, to work with the industries, get that list of certifications, and back reverse engineer what is available and what do we have to supplement, because there's some pretty inexpensive online courses out there that will finish that preparation.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. That's an excellent point you brought up, Sheila. And I would say, well, first of all, congratulations on getting the CTE recognition. I know it's a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get that done. I would continue to say that this is hopefully tip of an iceberg in terms of additional certifications in other areas, and that we don't limit ourselves to thinking of it as only 3 courses. I would expand on what you said and said, if they need additional things in AutoCAD, it's a perfect candidate for dual enrollment, and especially if the state's going to start picking up the tab for that, to get our students attaining credits in a lot of other places, building off the foundation they get here. One of the questions I would have is, I kind of missed it looking at the slide, but do we have any relationship with URI yet in this area?
Well, we have some very friendly professors, one of which came to the meeting in the fall. Two came in the meeting in the fall, and they were very interested to have our students come in the summer program that they have. But right now, as far as a relationship, I would like to meet the person that gets a relationship with URI, because I would like to go to that meeting. We've had a few things. We've had our world language department has gone there. We've had some nice back and forth. But to get an actual articulation, we have not been able to do that.
And no, I don't believe any school district has one right now.
Yes, thank you. I was kind of expecting that was the answer. So I would once again put out an open call to Dr. Dooley to say, and if anybody here works for URI, maybe to send a note to Dr. Dooley. We are in your backyard. The state voted to give you $125 million to expand your engineering program. We're moving to where you're taking more out-of-state students than in-state students. We are right in your backyard building this program. We have the only German language program. We have Spanish up to, Spanish 5 and AP Spanish. We are a source of enrollment for you and to keep Rhode Island students in Rhode Island working for companies in Rhode Island, something the governor keeps echoing. So it just befuddles me why the leadership at URI cannot be a little more proactive in reaching out to school districts, especially ours, in terms of that. I would ask, in terms of some of these companies, the next step in terms of the students, like you're saying, who are not on the perhaps college track, but just into the career track, our ability to not sort of just get them prepared to go, but actually start getting pre-employment, summer employment, multiple long hours working there in the future. Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's part of the tracks, is for students who to do direct placement.
Great. And I would say if you're dreaming big, I just saw a school in, I forget what state, but they're adding drones, building drones, having a drone class. Another area we could be out in front. So if we're thinking big, let's think drones.
As long as we have your support for the equipment, I'll be all over that.
Oh, I can just see that request from the town council. We want drones now.
Thank you both. So I've had a request to mix up the agenda again. So I'm looking for a motion to move the next item to be the approval of the FY16 budget cuts.
So moved.
Could I please say something? Of course. We have our architect in the audience, and that's for approval of bids and awards C1. And I'm wondering if maybe we could release him by asking some questions, because I'm thinking this is going to take a while. So
Yeah, the funding
would
will.
anybody mind that?
Not at all.
So then, can I get a motion to move C1 as the next agenda item, which is the approval of the purchase of the rooftop units?
So moved.
Or C1.
Madam Chair, I know I am out of order, but I'd just like to request that there are a lot of teachers here tonight, and a couple of people who came to make some citizens' comments and have children at home. We know there are a lot of things on the agenda. We would humbly ask the school committee to at least let those couple of people make their citizens' comments first.
Yeah.
That's fine. We can, let's do the citizen comments next. There's only 2 people that are signed up, and then we'll move along and continue to mix it up. So the first person on the sign-up sheet is Lawrence Vieira.
Thank you. I'm Lawrence Veria, North Kingstown High School social studies teacher. Tonight, North Kingstown High School, middle school, and elementary school teachers are here in response to comments rendered by North Kingstown Department Superintendent Phil Auger at the April 28, 2015 North Kingstown School Committee business meeting. At that meeting, NEANK High School building advocate David Avedijan addressed concerns that many high school faculty members have regarding the technology initiative. Mr. Avedijan delivered his comments in a respectful tone, remained focused on the rendered points, and made no personal attacks. The main thought communicated by Mr. Avedijan was that the school system should consider laptops for North Kingstown High School faculty rather than the Chromebooks currently slated for most teachers. He stipulated the reasons for that request. Disappointingly, Dr. Rhode responded publicly to Mr. Avedijan's presentations in a derogatory fashion. The North Kingstown School Department prides itself on many things, including its civic mission. In preparing students for an active and engaged citizenship, North Kingstown teachers try to model responsible ways to advocate for a cause and how to express opposition in a non-confrontational manner. Sometimes, we as teachers fall short of that mark. In such instances, it is important for us to admit our mistakes and take one step back so we can continue the march forward. In the spirit of that practice, we ask that Dr. Phil Rhode retract his April 28th comments of NEANK building advocate David Avedijan, that he agreed to meet again with the high school teachers at one of their remaining faculty meetings to further discuss the teachers' technology needs and accept other North Kingstown schools' invitations to do the same. Meeting these requests will encourage us to all move forthrightly towards the successful implementation of the technology initiative. Mr. Avedijan did not have the opportunity on April 28th to address Dr. Rhode's assertions and the resulting school committee discussion that followed. Tonight, we are submitting a letter that responds to the superintendent's business meeting statements, which we think widen the understanding of the original concerns. In addition, we are submitting a petition with over 175 teacher signatures requesting Dr. Rhode respectfully retract his aforementioned comments. We look forward to Dr. Rhode's response this evening, and we look forward to working with him on rolling out the initiative going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the list is Jennifer Hoskins.
Jennifer Hoskins, Saunderstown. I just wanted to thank you. We are a group of strong, well-educated, and well-informed parents. We have continued to advocate for youngest North Kingstown residents with respect to the funding of full-day kindergarten. The lack of funding of kindergarten has negatively affected 4 years of our youngest learners. So we thank you for unanimously choosing to stop this and fund full-day kindergarten tonight. Our mission from the beginning has always been for this particular program to be funded. As a result of our efforts, we have attained an additional $450,000 from the initial allocation of $900,000 from the Town Council to the school committee. We are continuing to work with representatives of the state level to ensure that the passing of Senator Gallo's bill, which will accelerate the funding formula for the upcoming year. That means instead of receiving half the funding per student because we didn't have full-day kindergarten last year, the bill would allow us to receive the full per child amount for the 2015-2016 school year, thereby increasing the funding to the schools by approximately $130,000. Again, as a result of our group's efforts, Senators Sheehan, Gee, as well as Representative Cravens are assuring their assistance to move this bill forward, especially since we were unable to attain full funding from the North Kingstown Town Council for the funding of full-day kindergarten. We assume cuts need to happen due to the decreased allocation from the town. We hope that the school committee will ensure that the cuts come from staffing, not come from staffing to already overcrowded classrooms at schools like Hamilton and Stony Lane. We are requesting and urging that a sensible resolution can be realized with cuts to other areas or consolidation.
Unfortunately, the behind-the-scenes savings cannot be budgeted for. However, we need to acknowledge that going forward, there will be a great deal of cost savings from the reduction of required RTI and IEP services, as well as returning students from charter schools, 6 who we have confirmed. That being said, we don't know if 6 from North Kingstown will get in on the wait list. We as a group, we are here, as a group, we are not here to right all the past wrongs. But that being said, we are not going anywhere. On the town side, after the last town council meeting, we as a group discussed with town council members our intentions to fundraise for a van for the seniors and possibly a shared van that could be used by high school and middle school students in the evenings. We also discussed the need for an indoor youth recreation center and began strategy talks on how to make that a reality. On the school side, we are focusing our efforts on coming up with viable and creative solutions to deal with large class sizes, the need for differentiation for the higher level students in math and literacy, as well as issues surrounding school start times. Discussions will ensue going forward with anyone who is interested in positively assisting our group with these efforts. Thank you.
Sure, come on up, Mr. Welch.
First, I'd like to say I'm overwhelmed and pleased with the folks, the citizens that have shown their interest in the way we run our town and our school system. 7 years ago, when I first got on school committee, the budget hearings, et cetera, were not attended. They came later on to the school committee and asked that things were not cut, but they needed to be at the town council. This is the first time in my 7 years being involved in the town that the people went to the right meeting. They went to the town council, they showed their concern, and demanded that their concerns were answered. I only hope that they keep up and do that more often. You know, when I was running last, the representative from the high school that represented me and introduced me to the classes, I said to her, if you don't think that one person can make a difference, all you need to do is look at Gina Raimondo and how she got the entire General Assembly and the governor to sign off on the pension bill, something she couldn't vote for. So it's an extremely important understanding that the people who are elected to serve us need to hear from the people, and they need to come to the meetings and say what's on their mind. I want to compliment the school department and the school committee. I know I've done it in the past, but having served on the town council for 2 years and the school committee for 4, you folks just continue to shine. You shine in many ways, the way you do your budget, the way you operate, the way you manage a budget of over $60 million. I cannot say the same for the municipal side. I know you don't want to hear me talk about that tonight, but it is something that needs to be discussed. It needs to change. And the folks behind me need to help to get that changed. And the last thing I will say, serving on the council for 2 years, it was a problem for both myself and Councilman Maloney that we constantly complained about the lack of the town following the rules on the minutes which are required. But yet, the school committee and the school department have always followed those rules. I don't understand the difference. I don't understand why the town can't do what you folks are doing. Please keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't
know I needed to sign up either, if I could just have a moment, please. My name is Roberta Bellinger, and I'm the director of the North Kingstown Community Chorus. We're a nonprofit organization of presently over 100 singers, very exciting. We've had the opportunity to work with Norma Kayazza, who directs the chorus, concert choir here, and the orchestra. This stage is greatly in need of a new piano. Not only does my community organization use this stage, many other community organizations use this stage. Every single school in this system comes here to perform. North Kingstown does not have a theater. This is the theater. The instrument was purchased, I believe, 19 to 20 years ago. It's dead. It's had it. We are so excited to work with Norma in that, in hoping we can help procure a new instrument for the stage, that we are offering matching funds to help pay for this instrument. So I just wanted to let you know that we're so excited to hopefully be able to see this project through, and I thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have a superintendent's report?
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I would like to take the opportunity of my superintendent's report to respond to Mr. Verrier's comments tonight on behalf of the faculty members who have come out. I appreciate those comments, and I appreciate the fact that so many of you have taken the time out of your schedule tonight to be here. Mr. Avedijan, I do want to apologize to you for the comments that I made. I have insisted. I have insisted with you in the past that when we conduct our meetings, that we do so respectfully with one another, and clearly I have to do a better job leading by example in that regard. So you have my apology. I do want to point out a couple of points, and you know, I have tried to do this at every faculty meeting, completed the last faculty meeting this morning, in fact. Dr. Humbert and I have gone to 8 faculty meetings with Kim Ramos, who is our technology lead teacher in the district. And, you know, the background that we have in this process is about 2 years long. And I think there are I know there are a number of teachers, whether it's through involvement on our technology committee or a number of other places and venues that teachers have been able to be involved, have been. But clearly from the showing tonight, and you know, that is not enough. So I am more than happy to call Mr. Verrier tomorrow morning to start this dialogue. You know, not every meeting necessarily needs to be me in front of a room with a lot of teachers in the audience, but I would prefer to work in smaller groups, perhaps in departments and teams of grade-level teachers, things of that sort, people who share the same concerns about the technology they have in their rooms. I want you to know that we have already been doing a number of things to make sure that teachers have, you know, the right technology for their learning environment, their room. And in a number of cases, I have worked personally with principals and with Mr. Booth to, you know, kind of go off the script a little bit to make sure that a teacher would have exactly the type of, you know, technology that they may need in that particular room for the goals that they're setting for their instruction. So I hear you, and I will strive to be more inclusive, and that will start tomorrow morning. So thank you very much. The next piece of my superintendent's comments is that, you know, first I would like to thank Morag Cronkite, who is in the room tonight, for her 27 years of service to the North Kingstown School Department. Mrs. Cronkite has been, you know, a principal's principal, and a leader's leader. She is someone that we look to in the district for her leadership, not only just at Hamilton Elementary School, which she has been as good as it gets, but for a lot of initiatives that we have around the district that we seek her guidance for. And, you know, for all of your years of service to NK, we can't thank you enough, so thank you. Tonight, I would like to introduce you to the person I am proposing to be the next principal of Hamilton Elementary School, and that is Dr. Caitlin Lambert-Donahue. If you could stand, please. Our search committee has been nothing but impressed. I have been nothing but impressed. Dr. Humbert as well. Great references, great background, and we know we're getting the right person for this job. And I'd like to ask Dr. Humbert right now to talk a little bit about the search process and about some of the credentials for Dr. Donahue.
Thank you, Dr. Auger. We had quite an interview committee, one of the largest that I've ever seen, and extremely inclusive with the music teacher, special educator, the school secretary, the school nurse, 2 parents, one of whom is an administrator in an elementary school, a middle school administrator, myself, and the director of pupil personnel was invited, but she could not attend due to illness. And so we had a strict timeline, we had a strict protocol, and I'm pleased to say at the end of it all that we had a unanimous decision to put Caitlin's name forward. And so I just want to give you a little bit of background on Caitlin. She has a PhD in educational leadership. She has been an assistant principal at Bridgewater an elementary school in Bridgewater for the past 3 years. This is a large elementary school which is devoted to the primary grades but has over 1,000 students in it. So as a result, Caitlin has had a whole wing of that school. So in essence, she's been conducting herself as a principal of a building within a building, so to speak. And so she has had supervision of over 130 staff members. She has evaluated annually 41 teachers and just has had extensive experience. She's an alum from the Teach for America program, so that landed her in New York, where she served as an elementary teacher in several elementary grades. I do want to say that the committee overall, I went through their comments again today just to refresh myself on some of the comments that they made. And I would say overall the committee felt that Caitlin was poised, professional, and personable. And when I looked over her references again, one thing that one of the references said really struck me, and she said that she combines caring with candor. And so we know that Caitlin is very pleasant, has a wonderful demeanor, and had us laughing, great sense of humor, but at the same time is able to handle difficult situations and has expertise in many difficult situations already. So she comes to us skilled, and I look forward to working with her as the whole school, I know, feels that way. And so we thank you. And I also want to extend my thanks to Mrs. Cronkite for all that we have learned together as colleagues and have been able to experience. I appreciate her leadership very much, and I know that she will take Caitlin under her wings through this transition process. Thank you.
So given that we just had the new Wickford principal on the agenda, I'd like a motion to move, Hamilton. I'd like a motion to move G1 from the consent agenda as the next item on our agenda, which is the approval of appointment and contract of the principal for Hamilton Elementary. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Second.
So, motion to move? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve G1.
Second. All those in favor?
Correct that comment.
Discussion.
Sorry,
Mr.
real
Jones.
quick. Thank you. I'd be remiss as the parent of 2 children who went through Hamilton, not to also add my compliments and gratitude towards the leadership that Mrs. Cronkite provided at Hamilton. And I know my wife would not forgive me if I didn't also add her comments as well in both wishing you fair winds and following seas on what lays ahead for you, and also the great amount of time you afforded her to be in your school to do the yearbook for, I forget, 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. And I think she spent more time there than she did at home for a while doing all that, and you were, she wanted me to echo the comments and appreciate, again, as parents of 2 children who got a first-class education at Hamilton, our congratulations and best wishes going forward.
Is there any further discussion? Motion to,
We have a motion, we have a second.
all those in favor?
Aye. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
At this time, we're going to take a 2-minute recess, and then we'll come back to the remainder of the agenda. So we're reconvening the May 12th school committee meeting of North Kingstown. So the next thing on the agenda is the consent agenda, and I have a request to move C1, which is the approval of the purchase of the rooftop units, to the next item. Do I have a motion to move C1, which is the approval of the purchase of the rooftop units, as the next agenda item? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So, do I have a motion to approve the purchase of the rooftop units for the North Kingstown High School? Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I had a number of questions that I had sent to Mary, but I believe she has the consultant here who's prepared to answer them.
Yes, and that's, Mr. Partridge, if you'd please come up.
Let me give you a little bit of background here, and Mrs. McGovern is probably going to be the one that's the furthest behind. We've been talking about this for quite some time. We started back in August of 2013 doing a commissioning study of the heating and ventilation system of the North Kingstown High School. That turned into a very, very complicated study. I had attached for you all, again, the matrix of 40 or so items that came out of that that need to be addressed with the system itself. There were a lot of issues that were involved, and for whatever reasons they happened, and now we're interested in moving forward and getting them fixed. It took us nearly a year for that study, and we had hoped to be able to get some work done on the system last year. We were unable to do anything but the attic fans, and those attic fans were installed last summer, and the goal of the fans is to relieve the extreme heat on the third floor. So now we're at the point where we want to do the majority of the rest of the work. It was outlined in yellow on your matrix that I sent to you. And we've had to split this project up into two parts. And the reason why we have to do this part is the first part tonight that we're looking for approval on is ordering of the rooftop units. And the reason why we're doing this separate from approval of the general contractor is because we can get a 2-week jump on ordering those units that could take 6 to 8 weeks to order. So it's very important that we get them ordered, we get the contract moving on those. Then the second part that we're going to ask you for at the May 26th meeting is approval of the general contractor. And we'll be opening those bids this Friday. And so the other part that we need to discuss is how the funding works for this. The funding that the school committee has reserved, they had reserved $700,000 in total over two different approvals in our fund balance to contribute to this estimated total $1.7 million project. We've spent approximately $100,000 on the attic fans, give or take. We have some A&E fees and some commissioning fees of about $100,000. And now tonight we're asking for approval of nearly $300,000 for the units. After tonight, when we are moving forward with the general contractor, clearly the remainder of our funds will be committed to the project, and then we will go to the town council for their approval of the general contractor for $400,000 in funding that they committed to us a year ago. I think it was a year ago about this time frame. I've had several discussions with Mr. McKay, town council president, alone, and also with Mr. Partridge and Mr. Grundy, who is the chair of our facilities subcommittee. Mr. McKay has assured us that the funding has been reserved for us on the town side, for which we are grateful. So we are taking, Mr. McKay is also on our facilities subcommittee, so he understands why we're taking these two separate steps. So again, to recap tonight, approval of the rooftop units, May 26th, approval of the general contractor, of which I'm hoping not to have to bring Jim back for that meeting, and then June 1st has been committed for the town council approval of the general contractor and the appropriation of the funds that they've reserved for us. Jim. do you have anything you want to talk a little bit in summary also about, what the work is that we're going to be doing? And
Yeah, there's quite a bit of items that are involved with the matrix that is before you. A lot of it really stems from when this building was built back in 2000. There really wasn't any kind of HVAC commissioning plan that was enacted for that project. So basically, they built the building, but they really didn't go through and do a verification of all the building systems that were installed in this building. So with that being said, you have some items that are literally running 24/7, 365 days a year. So you're using an extreme amount of energy to keep these systems running, and our task is to sort of take all of that stuff into consideration relative to recalibrating or rebalancing a lot of the systems that you have in place to be able to save on energy, save on unneeded costs that the community is actually fronting, every year, year in, year out type of items. So a lot of the equipment that you already have is just sort of a recommissioning avenue that we're dealing with, whether that be classroom exhaust systems, which is different than the attic exhaust that we put in last summer, but also the unit ventilators that are actually providing the fresh air and introducing tempered air into each one of the individual class spaces. Those are going to be recalibrated because of certain things that were just left the way they were left when they were originally constructed. The HVAC units that we're proposing to replace are not just cooling, but they're also heating type units. So they're sort of a dual system type of a packaged unit that has literally been on demand for the last 15, 16 years, and they're quite frankly tired to the point where in terms of repairing them, it just doesn't make economical sense to do that at this point in time. So we took the stand of recommending that these units be replaced. Primarily, if you do repair the units that are here, some of the refrigerants and some of the systems that are actually used by these pieces of equipment are not legal today. So hence, that's why we're replacing these units, is to be able to provide a newer unit that works on today's refrigerant requirements in terms of VOC releases into the air, if none at all, but also to provide a more high-efficient type of unit that's taken the place of a unit that's been in service for the last 15, 16 years.
Can you also, Mr. Partridge, just talk briefly about the RFP process? Because I know that, we only have one bid that we're looking at tonight. So could you talk about that process and what you did to get that one bid?
Right. We actually put together a package for the replacement of the HVAC units, which included detailed specifications as far as the level of quality that we're looking for the particular units to replace in-kind units that already exist. But more importantly, it would also give the opportunity through the RFP process to have not just one type of manufacturer bid on it, but the opportunity to have other manufacturers bid on it, and obviously create a competitive bidding atmosphere so that we're not just handing a project over to a specific type manufacturer. The existing units are AON units. They're a high-quality type product, and the AON units that are actually built and manufactured today have even a higher efficiency rating than the ones that obviously are installed today. But we obviously didn't want to just include one manufacturer, so we always obviously set up our RFPs to create an all-equal process with, listing sometimes 2 or 3 types of manufacturers that could fit the bill. In this particular case here, the AON units that were actually submitted in terms of the response to the RFP actually kind of served in kind, because that particular manufacturer actually builds their units to sort of the rough sizes of the older units, but obviously they do more things relative to their internal workings in terms of providing fresh air, heating, cooling, that kind of thing. But there's also existing building constraints that exist in this building where the existing units actually live and sit that other manufacturers really couldn't match up.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge. Ms. McGovern, do you have discussion questions for Mr. Partridge?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I mean, one is, I saw the write-up that these units are 15 years old and they're shot, and you said that AON is good quality, but 15 years is a pretty short time for a combined HVAC unit for a public building, for them to be completely shot.
True. I mean, in some cases, it comes down to year-in, year-out type maintenance. If that maintenance obviously, kept true to the life of the unit. In some cases, maybe that really didn't occur in this particular building. Obviously, I can't say that it did or it didn't, but the type of items that we saw in our analysis of the condition of the existing units kind of demonstrated that if there was some more sort of TLC relative to the units, and if you had certain vendors that could actually review these type of units and be able to maintain them in accordance with the manufacturer's specifications, you might get a longer lasting period relative to the service of the units. In this particular case here, there were so many things that needed to be either replaced, changed out, reconfigured in some cases. It just didn't make sense to do that for this particular situation.
And also, Mr. Partridge, I believe that Mr. Grundy had indicated that he was seeing similar units in his business. Jim Grundy is the owner of Atlantic Control Systems. He had indicated at a facilities subcommittee meeting that he was seeing the same thing with this particular type of unit. 10, 12 years is what he was seeing.
On the average, usually.
But that's my concern, is why are we going with this same vendor then if they have such a short lifespan? I mean, they're $277,000, right, for the equipment?
That's true.
That's a lot of money if they're only going to last, or we can only count on them lasting 15 years.
Yeah. Well, obviously, technology over the years has gotten better relative to the operating sequences of these units. And back in 2000, 1999 era, those units, although they were good units, sort of had stipulations relative to the way they operate in sequence with other systems. AON is obviously continually to strive, into producing better and more efficient type products that have been sort of proven over the years.
And were you involved in the development of the RFP for the contractor to install the units?
Yes.
Does that include any ongoing maintenance?
There is a contractor warranty period of 1 year after the date of substantial completion, and then the manufacturer for the unit itself has a 10-year warranty period relative to replacement of pots and servicing.
Okay, so Mrs. King, I would recommend that in a year from June, we should be looking to award a contract for ongoing maintenance once that 1 year warranty or maintenance associated with the installation expires.
That would be well recommended, especially on my side, just to make sure that the equipment is actually being maintained in accordance with manufacturer's written specifications pertaining to what the warranty and the service contract should be.
If I'm still here, I'll make sure we do that. And actually, to put in perspective, $277,000 is a real lot of money. But if you divide that by 15 and then divide it by 4, because it's 4 units we're purchasing, 277 divided by 15 years is like 18.5. You divide that by 4, it's $4,000 a unit per year.
Right.
Is that
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
One of the, there's 4 units. One's for this room.
Yes.
One is for this area.
What are the other
One
3?
is for the gymnasium area. One serves the media center. And one is actually for
admin.
Admin, correct.
Thank you. I'm done.
Mrs. Avanzato, and then Mr. Jones.
Yeah, very quickly. That's an excellent suggestion as far as getting them maintained so that maybe we'll get a few more years of life out of them.
A lot of school districts don't necessarily have the right staff to be able to maintain some of these sophisticated type pieces of equipment, and this is obviously a certain case that falls under.
Sure. My other quick question is more for Mary, really. I know Facilities has had this, and you guys, they worked with Mr. Partridge to develop all of this, didn't they? Great.
Yes, and actually, we've discussed the units. They knew they were fully in support of splitting the bid like this because they knew that the timing. One other thing to indicate is purchasing the units on our own like this, we save on the markup that you generally get with a general contractor.
That is correct.
So that's helpful. But they understood, we discussed all that with them, and we will also have a meeting with them on Monday, May 18th, to discuss the proposed general contractor when we open those bids. So they always put forward a recommendation for you guys on that. So they've been involved from step one in 2013 when we started the commissioning study.
Right.
That always makes me feel good, because I have a lot of faith in that committee, and they've saved this district untold thousands and thousands of dollars, and they've given untold hours of their time. It's much appreciated. One other thing that I'm concerned or questioning, in terms of the approval of the general contractor, I'm just curious, why the council votes on that? Don't they just give us the money and then we?
Well, no. When we spoke to them a year ago about this, they did want to weigh in on it and approve the general contractor so that they could also be kept in the loop, because they are funding $400,000. I mean, it was sort of like we did with Davisville Academy. We went to them with Davisville Academy and got their approval on that general contractor as well. So this would be the same thing. And Phil Bergeron has been heavily involved with all of this. He's on our facilities subcommittee, but he's helped us with all of this as well. So that's why we're going to them on June 1st to get their final approval.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just one thing to note, too, is that, through the town, working with Phil Bergeron, he's also involved in the requisition processes through the cost of construction, so he can report back to the town council relative to the status of where we are and where we need to go to complete the project in a timely manner.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Two things. One is just, I think those were good comments, Sheila. We should follow through on your recommendation. And thanks again to all the people who do a lot of work in this area. And if Dr. J could confirm my recollection, but I believe that the ventilation at the high school in the NEASC self-study and the NEASC report was the #1 facilities concern from the high school teachers, I believe. I think that came out loud in that report. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so I thought maybe they might stay and weigh in on that too, considering if it was their #1 concern about conditions in the high school. So hopefully they'll be pleased that we are continuing to move forward to make this a better environment for both our educators and our students here. And again, thank you for all the work you guys do on the facilities subcommittee.
Any further discussion? So I have a motion and a second for the approval of the purchase of the rooftop units. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Partridge.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. Let's do the consent agenda.
So we've been chipping away here at some of the items on the consent agenda. I just want to make a note that we're going to
So before we get to the consent agenda, I just want to do a motion to table B2, which is the approval of the executive session meeting minutes of April 14th, 2015. Because we didn't have an executive session this evening, we didn't have the opportunity to review those, so if we could table that. So I'm going to make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we're also going to, I'd like a motion to remove F1 and 2 from the consent, since we didn't recess to executive session. So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So, are there any other items to exempt from the consent agenda? Ms. McGovern?
C3 and D1.
C3, D1. Any others? I'd like to exempt E1. That it? Do I have a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda, which are, because I just want to list them out because we've made so many changes. A1, B1, C2, G2. No, we continue with your consent because we're taking this out.
Oh, got it. Sorry. I'll be quiet.
G2, G3, and G4 and G5.
What you said. So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. So, Ms. McGovern, you exempted C3.
C3, yes. So I was just concerned about this. I completely understand that pianos have limited life and are essential, but for the amount of money, why isn't this going out to bid?
Because we are not actually purchasing the entire piano. We are contributing to its purchase. The piano that has been chosen by this group is approximately $26,000 is in your package, and we are contributing, or the request is to contribute $10,000 toward it. It's sort of like a lesser amount of money, but in the Hamilton PTO donation, we're not putting that out to bid either because the PTO is contracting directly to get the particular projector and screen that they want. So those are their funds, if you will. And this was viewed as the same thing.
Except it's $10,000 in school funds. That would trigger a bid in itself.
But that also puts us in the middle of their business.
Just a quick question. They're purchasing this piano, correct?
They are.
Okay, so then, really, they don't have to comply with our bidding requirements.
I don't believe so.
Mrs. Carroll, could you weigh in on that at all?
Well, we're not purchasing it, so we wouldn't be putting out the bid. But we are contributing $10,000. But I'm not so sure how we would go out to bid for our $10,000 piece. That's the problem.
And also, too, because they're contributing much more than the $10,000, because it's about $16,000 they're fundraising and contributing. My concern would be that, we do some kind of bid, we get in the middle of it, and it's not the piano that they want because we end up taking a low bid.
Okay, so let's play this out. This piano is $26,000. They're telling us it's $26,000. Okay, so what if this piano goes out to bid? And somebody comes back at $28,000, somebody comes back at $26,000, somebody comes back at $23,000. We're still going to pay $10,000.
That's correct. They're not coming back to us for any difference.
Right. So we're going to pay $10,000 whether this piano comes in at $26,000 or $50,000.
I have a suggestion. Maybe this would help. I don't know if Mary could just coordinate with them a little bit. I'm sure they're going to do some price shopping because this group is a volunteer group. I mean, they're going to fundraise every penny for this. This is hard-fought money, I'm sure, for them. And it's a good collaboration, I think, between the community chorus and the high school.
And they have, and I've worked with Norma Kayaza on this, and they've done a lot of due diligence and looked at a lot of different pianos, and this is the one that they have their eyeball on.
Okay, they've already checked it out. Okay.
So theoretically, I mean, is it a bid? Yeah, but it's not going to make it, we're still only going to pay $10,000. So, Sheila, I understand your position and I understand your point, but it doesn't matter what this piano comes in on because all we're going to pay is $10,000.
Mr. Blasberg?
Yeah. I actually, Ms. McGovern, I asked the same question because I had the same reaction you did, which is, it is $10,000. It's, we're not contributing $500. But, the answer that was given does make sense. I mean, what we're being asked to do is to contribute $10,000 towards what they're doing. We're not purchasing the piano directly, yet we have all the benefits of it. And frankly, the last thing that I want to do is to discourage a community or other group from doing the kind of fundraising that they've done, because if it were not for the efforts that these people have done, we would ultimately be paying $25,000 for a piano, and we're not. And I walked by the piano. It is quite beat up, if you'd like to go take a look at it. I am not a piano expert, but I do think it has seen better days. Yeah. I'm sorry? It's right over there.
Let's roll it on.
It's that one, right?
Roll out the performance.
Norma, can you play us a couple? We want to hear it.
Nice, some accompaniment.
I'm correct. It is the piano right over there, right?
Yeah, there's one there.
Oh, I looked at the wrong piano. So which piano is it? I'm sorry.
In the music.
Okay, so then I no longer can speak to the condition of the piano.
But now we've got two beat-up pianos.
I'm guessing it's very beat up.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you. I do think, Sheila, you raise an interesting question, and I think for this particular item, I would concur with the recommendation from the administration, but I guess I would advocate to the policy committee because you could, in theory, consider a situation where the school department put it out for bid, and then obviously said it's an item that we aren't fully budgeted for and just ask for the cash donation and we may not accept the lowest bid because those contributing may provide their own subjective opinions that we would heavily consider in selecting a final thing. So you could envision an alternate path which sort of satisfies both things. And again, I would ask the policy committee take it up in conjunction with the administration and legal counsel going forward as an interesting example that comes up that maybe our donation policy should consider.
Mr. Blatchford?
Just quickly, one last thing. I said this a little bit, but it's similar to some other things we have coming up where we've had organizations do fundraising, offer to purchase something, and, we're accepting that donation. And I don't want to be nickel and diming and really getting in the middle of those types of community-funded things. A similar thing came up a number of years ago, not when I was on the committee, but where the Booster Club or another organization had raised money to purchase some very nice athletic jerseys, and they were very expensive jerseys, more expensive than the school department would have normally funded, but yet we weren't paying for it. So if they've raised the money and they want to get the nice jersey, who are we to say it's not our money? This is sort of splitting the difference, so it is something to definitely think about.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve C3.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. So, Mrs. McGovern, you also exempted D1?
Yeah, the description just, I couldn't tell whether or not this contractor is properly licensed and insured to do this kind of work in a public building.
That's a very good question. I'm going to say that they are because I know Mr. Haig has been involved with this. Mr. Medoyan, I see you hiding back there. Do you have any comment on that so we can move this forward? And we'll make sure we get that information from them. I thought I had recognized the name, so, but we will make sure we get that insurance information and all that, as we always do anyway, Mrs. McGovern.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Oh, Mr. Jones?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to make a motion to approve D1 with the understanding the administration will report.
I already seconded it.
Okay, never mind.
Sorry,
I just thought
I think there's a motion on the table, am I right?
There's a motion.
I thought I had
a second. And a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. So I only exempted E1 just to make a comment, and it also relates to D1 and C1. And I just wanted to say how fortunate we are that we have the booster clubs and the PTOs and all these other organizations that do fundraising for these important things that just are needed and that maybe the school department doesn't have the funding for, that are just tools that the students can have to enhance their experience. So I just wanted to say thank you to all those organizations for providing the donations so that we can purchase these products.
any other discussion?
No,
just want to concur with that, I'm sorry.
Just for consistency, I had the same concerns with this one, but with the information that was provided, I was able to do the research and find answers to my questions, so I don't have those questions on this one. They're all set.
Great. Mr. Avanzato, did you have a comment? Just was concurring with your comments, and I'll offer a motion to approve.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. So I think we made it through the consent. Moving along. We've already approved B2, so the next item, I believe, on the agenda is item B1 for the school committee approval of the FY16 budget cuts. So given that, I'm going to turn the discussion over to Dr. Auger.
Okay, thank you. You know, this has been a very contentious budget season, as we all know, and a lot of comments already tonight about that. You know, I feel, as I mentioned before, that our school department has done a very good job of explaining, you know, why every person and every program is needed. And I think you all know that, you know, when you're looking at a school department with 4,000 students and several hundred adults, there are a lot of moving pieces, and things change from week to week and month to month. You know, so over this budget season, you know, we have looked heavily at, you know, what we could do. I made a proposal to the committee. The committee, looking to be as frugal as they could be, even went beyond my proposal to make some additional cuts. They were not easy to implement, but we're finding a way. And so tonight, you know, we are still $175,000 short of, you know, where we need to be. I'm going to ask Mrs. King to talk about the details, but basically we're looking at some savings that we recently realized for healthcare projections to help with this, and I'm proposing the reduction of 2 teaching assistants from our ranks. We currently have over 100, not even sure exactly the number, but we have over 100 teaching assistants in the district. From year to year, the needs for teaching assistants change. I can't tell you that these are 2 teaching assistants from 2 particular classrooms, because there's a lot of things that get shuffled from year to year. People that we have now in the situations where we have needs right now will not be exactly the same next year. Some programs are moving from one school to another. Some kids who may have a one-on-one at one school moving to the middle school where there's a different setup with adults in place to take care of that student, where the one-on-one is not needed, that may be a place where something would, you know, a need would go away. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of work that's been done with Deb Gardner, who's done admirable work, the head of HR, keeping track of all this, with Dr. Brizulo from Special Ed Department in particular, who oversees the work of a number of the TAs in the district, because many of them are needed for special education concerns. And, you know, we have realized that, you know, and I want to emphasize, none of this is easy, but we realize that, you know, we can get going with 2 less than we actually, we're looking at 1 full-time and 2 part-time TAs. So the result is 2 full-time equivalents, FTE, of teaching assistants in the district. I also want to make another point, just to clarify something. If the town had voted on a $900,000 increase, as Mr. Embry initially proposed, and as they were initially seemed to be intent on doing, that we would have significantly more to cut, even without the kindergarten piece involved. We would probably be looking at over $200,000 in cuts that we would have to make tonight, and that's after we wouldn't do the kindergarten. So I want to be clear, if people are thinking, well, we're losing a TA or 2 because of full-day K. We are not losing anyone because of full-day K. The work that's been done, the advocacy, and the additional money helped us to get there, We still have some cuts to make. We would prefer to have gotten the full funding. I think we made an excellent argument to get it. It didn't work out that way. But I want to be clear that this is not a replacement one item for another. We would have, in fact, we would have more cuts to make if the initial item came through, and we would not have accomplished full day K this year if that initial proposal had been passed. So, so I'm going to ask Mrs. King right now to talk about some of the details on the getting to $175,000.
What we propose tonight to reach the approximately $175,000 we still need. So let's start with the budget that was approved by the North Kingstown School Committee on February 25th, 2015, was $60,625,074. That includes everything, grants, everything. What we were appropriated by the Town Council on May 4th was $60,450,005. So we're short $175,069. The week of April 6th, I was away from the office and heard back from the trust, which is about the time frame we hear from them. Earlier on in the year is really too early for them to give us any numbers, but they were telling Mr. Embry and I both that we should be budgeting trend, which is about 6% increases in health care. Our rates came in 4% for the HSA product that we have for the teachers and administration. Dental came in at 3.4%, which was actually higher than what we had budgeted. And the non-HSA health care program came in at only 2.8%. So all of that netted us out to about $100,000 in savings on the health care line item, which is admirable. I mean, those are pretty low rates. Even the 6% is a pretty low rate compared to, you know, the nightmarish numbers that we've seen over many years. And then we are proposing the 2 part-time TAs. As you know, that those are positions with no benefits. That's approximately $23,600 in savings. 1 full-time TA is $38,000. And then the remaining $13,469, I would ask that we have some discretion that I can finalize where those numbers will come from, supplies, maintenance and repairs. Somewhere clearly in the budget, you know, we will be balanced out. I would also echo Dr. Auger's sentiments that, you know, it's not a very popular opinion, but, and we don't like to see people lose their jobs, but your sustainable cuts, when 80% of your budget are people and salaries, your only sustainable cuts are if you can condense staffing. What our hope is that with the total, if you vote on this tonight, that's a total of 5.0 FTEs for TAs, teacher assistants, but at the same time, we're adding 4.5 for full day K. I'm sure there'll be a retirement in there. There'll be someone who doesn't come back. So we are hopeful that people, while they may not be in the position that they currently have or that they want to have, we are hopeful that they will still have a position because we're able to really do a net zero, really, actually. So it is difficult. We currently have 112.5 TAs in this district of all varying types of hours, part-time, full-time, 4.75, 6.0, 6.5. We have hours all over the place. But that's what we put forward tonight, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I know some of you had some other ideas, and we can certainly talk about any of that.
In lieu of making a motion, I think there's probably going to be a lot of discussion on this topic, so.
I was going to make a motion that we vote on the cuts individually and not as a package as we've done in the past. So to allow us for ones maybe where there's consensus to quickly move through and ones where there might be more discussion to have the appropriate discussion.
Maybe we should just discuss before we put a motion on the table. I don't know.
Well,
we're only talking about 75,000 though, because
we haven't done anything yet.
That's
So
approved,
but for the cuts.
May I jump in?
Yes, Mr. Blaswell.
Let's bite off the easy one. We could do a motion to approve accepting the $100,000 reduction to the health care line item, which is the easy one. So that is my motion.
Is there a second? Second.
Is that okay? Do one at a time?
Yeah, if we didn't need a motion to procedurally do that, which was my motion. So
Oh,
if we
well,
didn't
I
need
don't
that,
think we
I'll
do.
withdraw it if we didn't.
consensus.
Okay, then I withdraw my motion.
So, motion and a second.
We're kind of making it up as we go along.
We are tonight. This is mixing it all up. All those in favor?
Nope, discussion.
All you're doing is healthcare.
Yes,
This is just for the 100,000.
Linda raised her hand.
I need to say something about this.
Okay, go
This
right
is
ahead.
not something we're supposed to be doing. I just need to make that clear and get it on the record. We've had the Auditor General, we've had multiple auditors, we've had many people say, do not take money, that's surplus money that you don't expect, and basically plug it in a hole for the budget for next year, creating what they call a structural deficit. I'm probably going to vote for this because we just don't have a lot of places to go for the money at this
Mrs.
point.
Avanzano, I'm not sure what we're talking about here. This is, I had budgeted a 6% increase in our healthcare rates, but they came in at 4% approximately. So that's going to save us $100,000 in what I had budgeted.
So that wouldn't be a structure.
That's next
No,
year's
but
budget.
in other words,
An
okay.
operational savings.
It's not structural
Every year,
deficit.
but is it every year?
Well, next year.
Well, it is if your rates never increase again.
But you can't count on that. That's what I mean by structural. It is a structural deficit. You can't count on that savings every year.
Well, yeah, you can, because the new savings next year is just because of those rates next year. So this isn't creating a structural deficit. This is what we do every year. We always know we have rate increases, but we're not automatically behind next year because of this 6% to 4%.
Right. So what is it the year after that it's more?
No, we're just automatically behind because healthcare stinks and the price goes up all the time, but not due to this. I mean, if prices never went up, we'd always be, at this amount. So this really isn't a structural anything. This is just the regular operations of any business.
Okay.
It's just a reevaluation of a budget assumption that was made based upon more accurate information that has come since that time.
And solid information from the trust.
Okay.
If you knew these rates back in January, that's all you would have asked for.
That's correct. Yep.
Mrs. Held?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, so we're actually looking at, being in the hole about 75 when we start going through those cuts.
Which is
Great.
Right, which is
Yes,
Part
we do.
B.
We do need a motion.
We did. We have
a motion and a
We need to
second.
vote on the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
And that was the easy one.
Now to the hard part.
That was pretty easy.
So I think everyone's going to have a comment on
Well,
this.
I have a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation to reduce 2 FTE teaching assistants. Is that the correct term we're using?
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'd like to make one comment, and then we can go down the line. I certainly think that the superintendent is the person to make the proposed cuts. I know that Mrs. King and the administration and Dr. Auger have spent numerous hours going through what they think would be the best cuts that we can make with the least impact on the district. My only comment would be that I know that we had a whole bunch of families come up here from Quidnessick, parents of third graders who were concerned about the class size, and those third graders are now moving to the fourth grade. And we also had a lot of parents from Hamilton that came up concerned with the first grade class number, which now will be moving to the second grade. So I did have a discussion with Dr. Auger regarding my concerns, and he assured me that in moving all of these TAs around, that it shouldn't have any impact on those class sizes that we already have. So I just wanted to make a point about that, because I'm sure that would be a question that would be raised from those parents. Mr. Blasberg?
Similarly, that's a concern of mine as well. I mean, I know what an important part of the classroom the teaching assistants are. My personal classroom experience is knowing what happens in elementary schools. My kids happen to be elementary school age, and I know that, whether it's dealing with unruly children in a class, people who need more attention than others, it allows the teacher to continue to teach while the assistants are, assisting and dealing with those type of issues. And any reduction, even if it is, I don't want to make this sound like we don't need them, but within the sort of global rounding of where the TAs go in the district, if it doesn't necessarily result in an actual person disappearing, I think it still does have an effect, because the fact is, we would have more available teaching assistant time and bodies if we didn't do this. But part of getting things done is compromise, and we are put in a position where we've all agreed already that full-day kindergarten is what we want to do. We've been saying that for a long time, and to make it happen, we have to make these difficult decisions. I said earlier that I wouldn't implement full-day kindergarten if it meant removing existing successful programs. This concerns me greatly because I don't want it to affect education within the district, but I'm relying on what Dr. Auger has said, that with some shuffling and moving things around, we can keep the impact of this as low as possible. And I think when we balance the positive impact of implementing full-day kindergarten against maybe being a little short, hopefully not much short on teaching assistants, that the full-day K really is the thing we need to do. So I'd support it.
Mrs. Avanzato? I would agree with many of the comments that, all the comments basically that Mr. Blackball just made, but I have a couple of concerns. One is that a couple of groups came in front of the school committee and asked for TAs to be added for various reasons. And I realize that you will be looking at these situations, and I know you already have done so and done a thorough analysis. My concern is they may come back to the school committee at some point. They may realize the impact down the road halfway through the year, the way we had groups come to us halfway through the year, last year and the year before, asking for TAs. So I guess we'll just be turning to the town council and asking them to write us a check in the middle of the year or something.
Can I
please
address that?
Please do.
Mrs. Avanzano, from your experience on the committee that there have been years where, for one reason or another, usually, it's an excellent reason, because otherwise the superintendent, whether it's me or Phil Thornton before me, wouldn't have come to you and said, we have some kind of a need that we didn't foresee. Usually around special education, these things can occur. Someone moves into the district and has some special needs that require an additional staff member, and we have no alternative but to make that happen. And depending on how we're working with the budget that year and how things seem to be working out, there is always the possibility that I may be coming to you and saying, we absolutely need an additional staff member, whether it's a TA or a teacher in a certain spot. And it's up to me to figure out, okay, how are we going to find the money to do it? But, that's always in the realm of possibility. Right now, I feel like we can get the mission done without that. But, the more we go about the exercise of cutting year to year, the more likely it is we're going to be so tight that we may kind of cross that threshold, and we have to be ready for those kinds of conversations.
We've had those. We have had those before at this table. Just curious, so you're thinking we don't have to cut an actual person's job, or you're fairly certain we don't because?
Well, as Mrs. King mentioned, we're adding 4.5 TAs for full-day K, and we're taking away, we've already taken away 3, and this will be an additional 2, so we're taking away 5. Now, in any given year, people retire, people change jobs, some people, get sick and leave, or, move, and, so there's a lot of movement amongst our TAs in any given year. I can guarantee you that, there's going to be more of that as we move forward at the end of this year, into the summer, and through next year. So I truly doubt that anyone is going to be displaced, and if they are, I would almost guarantee that it wouldn't be for very long until someone else has an issue where they can't be in, and now we have someone subbing for that person, and it's the next person in line. So I don't see this as one of those situations where, groups of people are out of work.
Okay, well, I have a few more, if you don't mind. In terms of the charter school line, I know I've had a discussion with several community members who have gone to the trouble of putting out like a survey at each school to find out how many kids will be coming back to North Kingstown if we do offer full-day K. And of course, it's prospective budgeting, sort of imaginary budgeting type of thing where you can't be sure. And you probably won't recommend that, but I'm just going to say that we were able to confirm 6 definite returns definitely right now. So I guess that's...
The issue, we've talked about that, and I guess the real easy thing to do would be to change the projection on charter schools. The problem with that is, as you just mentioned, it is purely speculative. We do not know that for sure. And, while we can get some verbal confirmations from people that they would not, utilize their spot in the lottery and come back to NK from a charter school, I'm not sure who the next 6 people are in that line, and if, given the opportunity, they would take those spots, and we're still paying for people, from NK to be a part of those charters. So there's a lot, there's a lot of information we can find out, and we will find out as we move forward, but right now, I don't know that we know that for sure.
And, I would also say, too, that, I do think in the future years it's going to help us, having full-day K very much with the charter school issue. But we're really late in the game getting this done. So, you've got some people who maybe say, because it's really, the parent that sends their child to charter schools, they do that for many different reasons. They're not busing their child. They're not paying for anything. So maybe they figure, my kid's in, no harm done. I'll send him or her there. We're very late in the game. I budgeted this as a transition year, quite frankly. And also, as crazy as it sounds, as we're all embroiled in all of this drama that we go through, there are a lot of people out there that still don't know North Kingstown has full-day K next year. And I guarantee you there'll be some of those, as hard as that is to believe out there, ladies. There are some people that, and I won't say oblivious, because that's not it at all. It's just that they're not as tuned into the world that we happen to be in right now. So I think in the future it's going to help us very much. I just feel a little bit concerned about next year.
Just as a footnote to that point, tomorrow morning we will be sending out postcards to every parent of kids who are, under the age of 5, to let them know in big, fat letters that we do have full-day K in North Kingstown. So we're going to make it clear to everybody that we possibly can that is now available, because some people just don't read the papers and they're not engaged in the conversation, so they need to know.
Sorry, I do still have 2 quick things.
It's okay.
I'm asking these questions not because I don't have faith, Phil, in you and Mary's recommendations, because to tell you the truth, I think you've done an excellent job. You always do, but this year in particular, you guys have risen to the occasion. The budget has been very clear. You've done an excellent job with the recommendation, and I do trust you to find the best cuts and implement those in a way that's good for the students, and you'll come back to us if they're not. But it pains me that we're sitting here doing this. It pains me because there's a lot of money on the town side, and not one single cut was made. I know I'm Nancy negative, but I'm going to say it again because it pains me to be sitting here, and that's the reality of it. Millions and millions of surplus on that side of the aisle. I don't really understand that.
Well, and it pains us, too. Besides the people that are either going to be displaced or hopefully not, but, without a job, I don't think you're going to find 3 people more at this table that this pains than Dr. Ajay, Dr. Humbert, and myself, because we know these people. We know who they are. We see them at job placement. We see them at the, job fairs, whatever you want to call them. So these decisions were not made lightly, and also by Dr. Pizzullo either. It's an unfortunate situation that we are in this position every year, but the goal is not just next year's budget. The goal is to try to keep that future eye forward, because FY17 is going to be bringing about, from what I'm hearing, huge increases in our pension as well. So, as I said before, it's not a very popular opinion, but your most sustainable cuts and your cuts that, your numbers that always go up the most are your staffing numbers when it comes to salaries and benefits, and that's just unfortunate that that's where you really get the meat of your money.
Yep, true. And I'm sorry, one last comment. I wanted to recognize and thank Councilman Maloney and Councilwoman Waxman. They advocated for the school budget through the entire process. They asked for us to be funded, and they made multiple positive comments about this administration and our handling of the budget process. Also, Jason did as well. So thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Thank you. I want to echo the point I think Dr. Ojay made. I know there was concerns from different groups when we had full-day kindergarten, despite, again, a lot of studies that note it's a long-term positive return on investment from downstream savings in different areas, in addition to the educational gains to the students. But I believe from what you're saying is on net, we have a net small reduction in TA FTEs. I know we took an additional 2 teaching FTEs. God bless, I hope the Gallo bill gets approved, but if it doesn't, we know next year we'll catch up on the funding. So in a lot of sense, while we've added what I think is a very high-value program, we've either through additional sources or our own cuts have essentially absorbed the cost of most of that, except for obviously any teaching or salary increases that would apply across the board anyway. So I think that's important to note that the school district is doing that with regard to that. I do think it's important, though, that we continue to emphasize that when we see needs, we advocate for it, and when we have needs that we believe can be met through other alternatives or are no longer needed, we also advocate to either reduce the resources or reallocate them in different ways. I think that's important to continue to emphasize that going forward. I do know there's concerns. I hope this is an area where the administration, looks at multiple ways of solving, and that we do give some attention to those classes or those groups that are of concern, be it through using assessment data or other solutions to identify needs, and come back to us if we need to pulse a reading specialist or a math specialist or short-term things that we need to support those students to ensure they get the full benefit going forward, despite maybe the challenges of being a slightly larger than normal class. And I think that is a conversation in August to have when we do know better, maybe out-of-district special ed placements, charter school placements, and all that. I will say with regard to charter schools, it is in the Rhode Island Department of Ed regulations that charter schools are required to give us their enrollment numbers 2 weeks after the lottery. I'm just continually amazed that the games that especially Kingston Hill continues to play with not being able to give us a number. And I'm amazed that the Department of Education continues to allow them to get away with it. And I know, Dr. J, I think you've reached out to them. I would again recommend that you remind them of their obligations under Rhode Island regulations for charter schools, and ask that, maybe before May 26th, when maybe we're discussing, more of the budget, that we hopefully get a better sense of the numbers. At least we'll have a good sense from ours. I guess registration is the 19th, is that right? Mm-hmm. For kindergarten? And we'll see all that. So I would be a little more comfortable maybe taking some savings in that area ahead as opposed to supplies. But on the specific motion for eliminating the positions, I would concur. But again, let's keep our eye on those areas we know are high needs and not be afraid to ask for all different kinds of solutions to help those students if they need it.
Mrs. McGovern, do you have any comments? Sir. So we've any other discussion? So I'm looking for a motion to approve the superintendent's proposed budget cuts.
We're just on the TAs. Just the TAs. Just the TAs. We're doing them one at a time, I think.
Right, for the $75,000 for the 2 TAs.
Okay.
Don't we already have a motion?
No, we decided to do the discussion first.
Oh, sorry.
Losing track. 61.6 on
Right.
the 2 TAs.
61.6 for the 2 TAs. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes.
So, Mrs. King, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think we have the 13,469 left. Am I correct? We haven't addressed that yet.
Yep. And I would just say that if you can allow Dr. Ajay and I, it's not a lot of money. I kind of threw some things down here. We worked really hard on the TAs and looking at all that with Dr. Pizzullo. So I know that we can find $13,000 in several different line items. So without having Mr. Jones ask me to cut $100 and $500 and $20, I figure we can figure that out.
No, I have 5,000 in mind.
I think we should let you guys do that.
Thank
Actually,
you.
it's not a cut.
It's an ad?
It's a reallocation. Actually, I have a bigger one for you, maybe hopefully Dr. Ajay mentioned. I would make a motion that we amend the FY16 budget to add not to exceed $40,000 to fully fund athletics with the provision that the administration work over the coming year to develop a equitable and sustainable funding system for athletics going forward.
I'll second that motion for discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Salzano. We've been sort of dealing with this issue for, I think, 3 years, since the committee in 2012 had to make a laundry list of cuts, and busings was one of them, and athletics were. And I believe that we'll continue to sort of deal with this. And I know there was a lot of work done. There was a lot of good work done in negotiation with the teachers and the administration to rework the coaching formulas that provided savings and allowed us to fully fund coaching. I know there was a lot of work done by the administration and the high school principal and our athletic director to find additional funding. I continue to think, though, we carry this burden, and we're asking the same group of parents in the same sports to come up with stuff. And I think for languages, we came up with a solution of bridge funding for a year while we let the administration figure out what would be the right cuts to do. I think it's only appropriate for us to do this with athletics. Now the question would be so where do we get the not to exceed money? And so I will offer to table my motion for until the next meeting to allow the administration, one, to come up with the right number, and two, in addition to the $13,000, come up with a list of recommended cuts, or maybe a recommendation not to move in my request at that meeting.
Trying to figure out.
You have to vote on the table. You got to vote on the tabling right away, right?
What's your motion? Your motion is to table your motion?
Yes, correct.
I'll second his motion to table his motion.
Till the 26th, yes. And
All those in favor of tabling the motion to table?
Or something like that.
Or something like that?
Table the motion to the original motion.
Let me rewind. The motion would be voting on a motion to table Mr. Jones's original motion with respect to fully, quote-unquote, fully funding athletics. Correct?
Correct.
Is there a second?
This is
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. So we tabled it.
And now you got to vote on the 13
We're still at the
grand.
13,000.
Yes.
Any discussion on the difference of 13?
Do we have a motion on the table on that?
Not yet, we're going to discuss
I'm going
it
to,
first. Mrs.
I was going to
Avanzado?
make a motion. I was going to make a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation and let the finance director and the superintendent find the areas. I have a lot of faith in them. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Mrs. McGovern?
I know that there's a lot of line items, but these three in particular that were mentioned, I know that there's been criticism, complaints about already being very lean on funding for supplies, and one of my pet peeves is maintenance and repair, so I don't want to be digging into that anywhere for our facilities or equipment. So if we are going to consider this, please look elsewhere.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I would concur. I mean, I would agree with giving the administration deference to figure out those, but I would like more information where, because I do recall last year's budget meeting, I think, Dr. Ojay, where you passionately said this is always the area where we look to cut.
Right.
And supplies. And we ended up having to go back, well, we were fortunate with some of our fund balance to go in and I think plus it up by $100,000 to provide the school some much needed stuff. Since it's a low amount of money and we don't have to solve this problem tonight, and since I've also thrown another item on the fire to consider, and we haven't, for example, looked at kindergarten registration and whether we want to take a little flexibility with charter schools or out-of-district placements or other areas that, and it's a relatively low number compared to previous years, and as you mentioned, we maybe give you 2 more weeks to fully look at this and come back with those either more specific areas within this and the risk, even though it may be small, we're taking, or other areas that perhaps are other alternatives.
I'd really like to get this done tonight. Because, there's a real lot of work that needs to be done now to finish this all up. So,
That doesn't preclude us making adjustments next time.
And
we've done that before, yeah.
Just makes it done tonight.
And, we are so far away from the school year starting next year, and so many different things. We don't know how many Jamestown students are going to come here. We don't know how many charter schools are going to go out, students are going to go out. We don't know, how many special ed placements out or in. If a kid moves in the district, a student moves out of the district. So, I hear you, and I'm up here the most saying, I don't want to be cutting supplies anymore because it's not a sustainable cut. But, Mr. Jones, you looked at that budget, and I know that if you could have found something else, you would have found it.
He did find it.
I think there's a few more things we'd like to talk about, that's all.
And I would also caution you on the additional funding for athletics is to ensure that whatever is suggested is that that's sustainable as well. Because there are going to be 3 new school committee members up here, or I'm hoping not, but there could possibly be 3 different school committee members up here in the not-too-distant future who take that $40,000 and say, we're cutting it. So it's going to be very important that we really look at that line item, and I have to be honest with you, I'd kind of like us to work on that for longer than 2 weeks, Mr. Jones. 2 weeks it's not 2 weeks, it's 1 week that we have to get this together for the agenda for next week. And it's kind of a big item, and my concern would be is that we think we move everything around and we've gotten there, and then we find out in FY17, you know what, I think we're going to cut that again. That would really that's not something we're going to want to do.
Mr. Blasberg?
I just want to speak back to the actual line item that we're on, which is the, sorry, I closed my thing, right, to supplies, maintenance, and repairs. I echo Mrs. McGovern's concern, but I also trust the judgment that, we will be cautious, particularly within the maintenance and repairs area. It is not something to skimp on. Saving a routine maintenance on an air conditioning unit, for example, may be something that contributes to the decrease in the useful life of the unit, causing you to replace a $200,000 air conditioning unit later on. So we need to be careful with that.
And that's not usually where we find something. Unfortunately,
right.
We usually wait till the end of the year and decide, maybe we're not going to build something, so we reduce lumber, or maybe we're not going to paint something, so we reduce paint.
Sure.
So it's not at all. We've got a great maintenance department. We have a good facility supervisor, so we're certainly not on the PMs, the preventative maintenance and all that, that's not something we're going to skimp on anymore, even if I had to come back and get money from somewhere else.
Good, and that's what my assumption would be. So, I mean, not that any amount of money is too small to not, require a certain amount of scrutiny and oversight, but within our supply budget, maintenance repairs budget, $13,469 is well within the area that I trust to the discretion of Mrs. King and her staff. So, I don't have an issue with that being the last bit of money that we're finding here.
Mrs. McGarvin?
Well, then, I'd like to suggest go back to my earlier suggestion about the breakage. And that's a very conservative number, and it's also a very round number. 13,000 isn't a big impact on that. And the administration could still go back and adjust that item once they know Jamestown numbers and actual tuitions for charters and all those things when they come, when they're reality.
Deal.
Question on that, though. Don't we already have, that's 300, right?
I do.
300,000?
We actually kicked that up from last year.
That's a lot, I think.
So let's just explain what breakage is for people that don't understand. It's what we call breakage. So if I leave my position today and it takes you 2 months to replace me, in that time frame that nobody is getting paid salary and benefits, you're not spending that money. So we call that breakage. That could happen if somebody goes out on medical leave and they don't have sick time left, and we hold their position for the FMLA time frame. It could happen, just like I said, somebody quits and it takes us a long time to replace people. Quite frankly, we're having much difficulty finding staffing. So we did kick that up because we have had that breakage, quite a bit of breakage over the last several years. But as Mrs. McGovern said, $13,000, that we can certainly do that. If the committee's more comfortable doing that, I don't have a problem with that either. If we can do that and wrap this up tonight and then talk about moving around the $40,000 for athletics, because that's basically what we'd be doing, Mr. Jones. We can't, we're not going to find $40,000 more unless we're taking money from somewhere else. I'd really respectfully ask that we have longer than 2 weeks to look at that. And like I said, it's really only 1 week. We would need to present that to you by next Thursday for the meeting on the 26th.
Mrs. Evans, I'm just going to point out that was never voted on by the committee in terms of having you find $40,000. There was a motion made, it was seconded for discussion. That wasn't voted on. It was a motion to table and a request that you look at that, and I agree with you. You need longer than 2 weeks for that. That's something that we need time for.
If we need to table it longer, we can table it longer.
Just start the conversation, I guess, is what he would like to do. I would prefer to really go with what you recommend, Mrs. King and Dr. Auger, to be honest, because I feel like you have a grasp on where we are with these. I'm a little worried about the breakage line. Whatever, I'm going to go with your recommendation. If you don't,
I'm okay with it. I mean,
okay.
As we get throughout the year, if it turns out we're not getting there, because the other breakage too would be if we have step 10 employees or top step employees that retire, we bring in lower step employees. So, we still have a little bit of time, and also even when people leave, if they're higher step employees, they leave, we bring in lower steps. So there's quite a bit of that does go on throughout the year. Partway through the year, if I think we're not making it, I'll definitely let you know.
I was a little worried about as Mrs. McGovern said, the supplies and especially the maintenance. So that may be a good substitute. Mr. Blasberg?
So procedurally, if, as Mrs. King mentioned, she's comfortable with adjusting the breakage line item instead, we have a motion and a second on the table, so what we should do is withdraw, with unanimous consent, we could withdraw the motion on the table. Who made it? Was it Mr. Jones? Who made that motion? Do we know? Madam Clerk, do you recall who made our last motion to cut the supplies, maintenance, and repairs?
No, there was never a motion.
Or did we not have one?
No, we didn't make. We had a motion to leave it up to Mrs. King and the administration. That's a caveat. We didn't want them to cut from those areas.
So, Mrs. Avanzato, if you want to withdraw that motion.
I withdraw my motion.
And if no one objects, then I would make a new motion, which would be that we adjust the breakage item to be, we would subtract 13,469 from it, correct, Mrs. King?
No,
or add to it. Sorry, don't remember which way we go with that number.
I'll figure it out.
Okay, well, we should say it right.
Adjust it.
So we would adjust it by, in the proper direction, $13,469, which would allow us to eliminate the potential cut to supplies, maintenance, and repairs, knowing that we may revisit it in the future.
I seconded that. a while ago.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Can I have one more motion where you are going to vote on the final bottom line budget?
So we need that now,
Do
right?
you have a number?
60,450,005.
Correct.
64 what?
So,
$60,450,005.
so I would make a motion that we approve the bottom line amount to be appropriated for our budget to be $60,450,005.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
I'll chip in the $5.
Thank you very much, everybody.
I'm glad that's over with. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving right along. The next item we have on the agenda is the energy purchasing contract, which we tabled from our last meeting because of further discussion. And I believe that committee members that had some issues have spoken with Mrs. King or Dr. Auger about it. So I would be looking for a motion to approve the energy purchasing services that have been proposed.
So moved?
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Blasper?
I just want to mention, as I recall, a lot of the discussion was a comparison with this proposed purchasing service contract with some options that were available through our former membership with the Rhode Island Association of School Committees. And I just want to make sure, Mrs. King, that ultimately the determination was that either way, this is less expensive than the option that they had offered, correct?
That's what I'm seeing on the electricity side, and this would be, we would be engaging the services for purchasing of both gas and electricity. Electricity is by far our biggest consumable, I guess, if you want to call it. The estimate right now, and clearly we don't know what usage is, but if we are on track with what we had for usage last year, we would pay this company about $2,000 for the gas end of it, gas usage, and approximately $10,000 to $11,000 on the electric side. Whereas on the RIASC contract, it would have been closer to $45,000 on the electricity side, based on the information that I had 2 years ago.
Okay, and that our no longer being members of RIASC is not costing us any money here, because that was not the least expensive option.
Right, and that doesn't even take into account the dues.
The fees, right, correct. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? So I have a motion and a
Thank you. I have no objection to the bid. I would just like to point out a little of the inconsistencies that this committee is sending by saying we choose not to be part of a professional association. We budget nothing for professional development, yet we expect our administration and our teachers and faculty to do so. I think we send the wrong message about what's important when we don't follow it ourselves.
Any further discussion? So I have a motion and a second to approve the energy purchasing services. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. So I think, I believe the remaining item here, the next item for discussion is information regarding the charter school complaint.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have tonight Michael Pollock from my office, who's been working with Mr. Jones on the charter schools, so he's here to give you a brief report. Mike, you might want to go to the microphone. Mike and Mr. Jones have been in daily contact over the issues having to do with Kingston Hill. And
the last item on the agenda. He had to sit there for the whole meeting.
It's a good learning experience.
It's a hazing thing.
It's not a hazing thing. It's, you know.
Is that what has happened to us?
Good evening. Good evening. As you may know, we did file a request for hearing at Rhode on behalf of North Kingstown and against Kingston Hill. The issue that has arisen and that has come up is that apparently back in 2010, the Department of Health, the Office of Drinking Water Quality, had their own concerns with the Kingston Hill public water system, with the capacity that it had. Kingston Hill and the department, they entered into a consent agreement which effectively capped their enrollment at 180 students. And I say effectively capped because they required, in order to exceed that number per the consent agreement, they required Department of Health approval, and they also, the consent agreement also required or requires Kingston Hill, before they improve their facilities, add classrooms, add gymnasiums, that they have to at least give a heads up over to the Department of Health. As I'm sure you know, back in 2000, well, just this past January, the charter, Kingston Hill had requested an increase in their capacity up to 260 with Rhode to amend their charter to allow them to keep that 260 within the grades K through 5. As part of their application, from my review of their application, it did not seem at all that they apprised the Board of Health, that they apprised Rhode of the issues that the Department of Health had. In turn, in reviewing the Department of Health's file on this matter, it appears that the Department of Health has not granted their consent. So the issue before Rhode is frankly, well, in approving the Kingston Hill Charter amendment request, one of the issues that they had to look at was whether or not Kingston Hill could expand, quote unquote, with fidelity. And in their findings, there was no mention of the water issue. The complaint that was filed is an attempt to make sure that all the T's are crossed and that the I's are dotted, that the facility that they have is going to be sufficient to serve the students that they propose to educate. The commissioner, so the request that was filed, the request for hearing, the end goal, if everything works out perfectly, it would be to have the commissioner basically suspend the charter amendment so that they have to stay down at their 180 that they're currently at. And also, you know, or in the alternative is to enforce them through the through the Department of Health to make the necessary changes that they have to the public water system. There is a pre-trial, or I'm sorry, a pre-hearing conference that is currently scheduled for next week, next Tuesday at 12 o'clock, in which Attorney Carroll and I will be attending. And that's going to be between us and Kingston Hill's attorney will be there as well. After that, a hearing date should be set in which the public should be able to attend. But that's where we stand right now with that particular complaint.
I just have a question. I know that we're not the only school district that has been affected with the Kingston Hill and the Compass Charter Schools. I'm wondering if there has been interest from any neighboring districts to join in this complaint, and if not, could we reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in joining us?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't reach out to them, for sure. The issues raised, certainly, I would think that neighboring districts in which students do attend Kingston Hill, and if they're willing, then I'm sure that we could certainly look into that, of course.
And I can add that I have had conversation with the attorney for Charahoe, and they are very interested in our complaint, and we still haven't reached out, but we will be trying to contact the attorney for South Kingston, because they have they have a lot of students at Kingston Hill too. So
they're equivalent performing districts.
Right. So I mean, those are things that we are working on. But right now, what took Attorney Pollock the most time was to get Rhode to come to the table, because they've been stalling us for about a month.
And incidentally, I've been in contact with the project manager over at the Department of Health, and it appears that this complaint has started the gears moving on at least getting Kingston Hill to visit or to revisit their public water system, and perhaps expanding the tank size or bringing it up to code or whatever, at least to make it comply with the regulations that are in place.
Mrs. Avanzato? Yes, I just wanted to say thank you to Bob for all the time and effort you've put into this issue and all the information you provided to the committee about basically this type of student population that the charter schools are serving, at least in North Kingstown. I think we need to continue to go down this road, and if they do alter the water system, we have to think of another road to go down, because I believe it was Charahoe. Was it Charahoe that sued?
Yes.
They sued Kingston Hill, maybe?
Both schools, several years ago.
And actually, they kind of lost, but they kind of won. Because the judge was like, well, you got to pay your tuition. Sorry, Charahoe, you have to pay them. But then they were like, well, we don't want to deal with Charahoe now because they sued us. So maybe that's what it's going to take. Maybe even the next step beyond. It's so much money that's being siphoned away from our students. I think we need to take the next step after this one. If they go ahead and comply with the water, they're still taking a lot of money from the public school system.
It will certainly be interesting to see how they comply with the water, because they did file back in September. And again, this is just a review of the Department of Health file. So a lot more will come out, hopefully at the pre-hearing conference, next week, and then ultimately at the hearing. But they did apply for what looked to me, I'm no expert in water systems, an increase in tank size, and that laid fallow. That sat there from September. They went through the whole process of amending their charter request, nothing. Though I believe it was a week and again, that was back in September. In October, the Department of Health had asked basically a follow-up on their petition back then. What's the purpose for this increase? Just random information, just general information, and there was no response to this proposed project. Then approximately a week or so prior to us filing the request, there was a response. All of a sudden, this was in March, maybe mid-March, and it had nothing to do with the information that the Department of Health had asked. So it seems like they've been spinning their wheels on this. So in order to get the necessary approvals to get this water system up and running and built and make sure that it complies by September, I mean, that's a tall order. We'll see. I mean, perhaps the Department of Health can work. I don't know. But it's at least putting their proverbial feet to the fire, and hopefully something, whether it's on the Department of Health end or Kingston Hill's side of things, to rectify. And I do agree with you. And again, Mr. Jones and I are exploring other options on Kingston Hill. That's correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bob.
Mr. Glassbog?
I also want to thank you and Mr. Jones for really what is essentially a pinprick of light on the transparency of what is essentially a parallel school department.
Parallel universe. Can you say that again so we can get that down?
You can write that down and use it in a brief.
That's excellent.
Light on the transparency of what?
Of what is essentially a parallel school district. I've learned a lot about how the charter schools work, sitting at this table, and my concern is, our monies come from the same source. The town council appropriates money for the school department, and then a large portion of that is then turned over to these essentially independent school departments. Unlike our situation, where each of the people on this table are accountable to the voters of North Kingstown, elected to see our seats, and if we don't do what you folks like us to do, you vote someone else in who will. There is no equivalent as to how their money is spent. It is appropriated whether the town council or this committee approves it or not, and we have, and the voters have no say whatsoever and no recourse over how they use their funds. I think it's important to shed some transparency into the process, and I commend you for moving in that direction. Thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I'm going to be about 10 minutes, so I don't want Michael to be standing if we don't need him to, or if he wants to sit. But I would start by thanking Michael and Marianne for the work they're doing here. And I want to take a couple point-by points, and maybe any reporters who remained in the room wants to sort of run with this, because I'm just amazed that some of this stuff does not see the light of day. I want to start off by saying, just to understand the magnitude of this issue, North Kingstown is now almost half the enrollment there, which means We are close to just under 900,000, probably budgeted for $1 million next year. It's the largest line item percentage-wise increasing. So that's the first thing to understand, is that, 2.5% of our town tax levy is going over to those two schools, Kingston Hill and Compass. And the first point, I think, which raises the interesting thing Michael brought up. So Kingston Hill has a consent agreement to limit them to 180 students. Yet for the last two censuses, they've enrolled 189. Rhode is fully aware of that in the census, and yet Rhode looks the other way. I don't want to quibble and say, well, it's only 9 more students. Well, if there's a fire over there and our students get hurt, and then we go, why is there no water or not insufficient water? Are we really going to quibble about 9 students? So I'm kind of amazed that the town of South Kingston, maybe they don't know, but doesn't choose to enforce a consent agreement from the state. Our town council often asks, what can they do? I would wish our town council would reach out to the South Kingston Town Council and say, if you're unaware of this consent agreement, it would be nice if you would enforce it. Of course, Mr. Blasbog is right. We rely on Rhode to be the supervisory agent for this. And it is just amazing how they choose to look the other way consistently in this area. So let's start with the fact that they look the other way, that they're violating consent agreement. The next interesting thing, in the application to expand their enrollment to 260, not a single piece of discussion was included by Kingston Hill in this. And in fact, in Rhode, the commissioner, in saying she did due diligence, did not once request a single document external to what Kingston Hill provided. The document by Kingston Hill was prepared by the Groden Center, which is the same people who signed off understanding the consent agreement, the same people who are paid over $150,000 on the Kingston Hill payroll, which means North Kingstown is paying $50,000 to June Groden and Helen Marcos, who, by the way, are on the Kingston Hill board, who vote themselves a multi-$100,000 a year contract to their own business. Now, you can imagine the equivalent, and I hate to put him on the spot, but if, Carrie McKay said we're going to, put furniture in all town facilities, and oh, by the way, we're going to do it through McKay's Furniture, and we'll have no discussion, and I'll be voting on it, along with my brother. It's just unbelievable, right? If I was a Kingston Hill parent, I'd be wondering, why is there an ethics inquiry into 2 of my board members? It's also unbelievable that the Deputy Commissioner of Education sat in that January approval for the Kingston Hill expansion charter amendment when he was the one in November 2012 wrote a letter to Kingston Hill saying you have governance issues. And your governance issues is you have too many people on the Kingston Hill payroll constituting a majority of your board. And yet, it still has not changed. June Groden is the highest paid employee over there. She owns, or is co-owner of the Groden Center, which owns Kingston Hill. I don't know the equivalent here, but I put you on the spot, Ms. Clarkin. It's as if you voted yourself a $150,000 stipend to be our chair. It is simply unfathomable that Rhode looks the other way in this. I think it's unfathomable that this has to come to light because we sort of say it here at whatever it is, 9 o'clock in an empty room, that this is not investigated more. Because let's go down the list. Besides the health thing and the water, in 2014, Kingston Hill reported an end-of-year financial deficit. That, by law, should have been reported to the Office of Municipal Affairs. Yet, in the same document where they report their quarterly thing, they reported 0 deficits. I don't know how you square in July 25th saying you have a deficit and July 30th you report you have no deficit, and you actually decrease your actual spending from the previous month to make your report 0 out. It's apparent to me that nobody in the Department of Municipal Affairs looks at these things, and it's apparent that Rhode chooses to look the other way and say, well, it's not our job, it's the Municipal Affairs job, right? And it continues. In their mid-year reporting this year, FY 2015, they reported running a deficit. When North Kingstown did that in 2012, holy cow, I'm glad I wasn't on the committee, right? And we won't reiterate the litany of work that went through, but it should trigger a remediation plan. Yet again, the Office of Municipal Affairs tends to look the other way. I don't know why they don't do so. I don't know why Rhode doesn't, because they are fully aware that Kingston Hill is running a deficit. They are fully aware that for 4 years, the Compass School failed to even file a report as required in their chart, as required in state law. 4 years. It took a North Kingstown citizen demanding they produce the documents for them to even do it. Yet for 4 years, Rhode was fully aware they weren't doing it, and so was the Office of Municipal Affairs. Right? Again, I'd wonder why there's an ethics inquiry about 2 of the board members at Kingston Hill. Right? I would worry, in addition to what Mr. Blagbaugh said, that there was a comment by June Groden that said essentially the Groden Center has veto power over any decision made by the Kingston Hill board. So let's think about that. Because why? Because Citizen Bank holds $1 million plus note on the Kingston Hill building. So while it was pointed out that the citizens of North Kingstown, South Kingstown, Jamestown, others have the recourse of voting out elected officials, in North Kingstown, not only is there a check on the voters on us, but the town council can weigh in, as we talked about, on certain things, and they control our top line. So there's another group that is scrutinizing our spending. There's absolutely nobody except the Kingston Hill and Compass Board, which is comprised of either their employees or parents, scrutinizing their spending. I mean, it's just amazing. We send as a town $1 million over there, and there is no transparency, no accountability. The Compass School right now is under 2, I believe, from what I've been told, 2 OMA and APRA violation complaints because of an inability to produce even their basic financial documents, because they hold executive session meetings without holding an open session to discuss that they're going into executive session. Very basic government stuff. Simply amazing. Simply amazing that a bank and a private citizen essentially holds control over a public school that the taxpayers of North Kingstown sends over $1 million to. And it's those same people who went before Rhode knowing they were not compliant and yet did not bring that to the Board of Education's thing. And I will also point out for the Board of Education, they were made aware of some of these discrepancies and yet chose to look the other way. So, again, I just fail to understand, and hopefully there will never be an emergency that requires water over there that comes to the health and safety of the students over there, that this comes to light. But it simply just boggles my mind that we continue to be forced to send students, and we don't even have to get into the performance stuff. Compared to the Compass School, every single one of our elementary and middle schools outperform theirs. Yet again, we're sending $300,000 over there. So I would, urge this committee to keep doing this. I would urge the superintendent to please reach out to his fellow superintendents who, it just, again, shocks me that they're not more involved. They're spending just as, not quite as much money, but I know for South Kingston a significant amount. For Cheraho, for all of those districts, it's a significant amount because it means they're cutting usually programs or raising taxes to do this. And they're sending it to schools that are essentially ungoverned, untransparent, unaccountable, and allowed to operate that way by the state leadership we expect to hold to the same standard they hold the rest of the LEAs to. So I would urge on the 19th, I hope Rhode doesn't keep stalling. I would ask that maybe we ask our General Assembly representatives, for those who have, maybe contact with them, to weigh in on this. And I hope the more people become aware of this, the more they demand some accountability in this area. I'll get off my soapbox now. Thank you.
Mrs. Evans, did you have? Just very quickly, I think we need to set up a meeting with the legislators, and I don't know whether this whole committee could be present. If we advertise it, I suppose we could. And
Advertised you can.
And I think we need to, and that's shocking. I didn't know a lot of that, and thank you for presenting all that information. It's crazy, the conflicts of interest. It's completely ungoverned, and yet everybody's down with a microscope on what we're doing on every single penny. So it needs to be addressed. And thank you, Bob.
Any other discussion? Also, I want to extend my thanks to Bob, because you've really done your due diligence on this, and I know that this is your pet project here, and I appreciate all the hard work that you're putting into it, and hopefully we're going to make some progress in this and make a difference. So thank you again very much. I believe that was the last item on the agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
That was unbelievable.
I didn't even get into the lottery issue.
The conflicts of interest were appalling. This is exactly